Hello, 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 and welcome to the let's just say fourth episode of Mixed Media Reviews Season 3. That's right, we're just gonna jump right back in and pretend that there wasn't a massive pause between episodes and move on. My name is Kelsey, and today I'll be talking about a book, or a book series, rather. This week's book series is the Lockwood and Co. series by Jonathan Stroud. Yes, it has been quite some time since I last sat here recording an episode for you lovely, lovely people. But I did pass all of my exams, which is super exciting and also super exhausting, and I'm really just super happy and relieved. But yeah, am I an architect yet? No, still no. I have to wait for them to accept my application, which I have turned in, and then there's a short, little take-home test that I have to do. And then I have to wait for them to have a meeting so I can be sworn in, and then I will be an architect. So there's still a little bit to do, but I'm over the largest hurdle, which honestly I can't express how amazing that feels. But anywho, enough about my life. Let's just get into the books. So I first found out about this series because the Netflix adaptation. I watched a season, if we're being honest, a few times before they announced it wasn't getting a second season, which really bummed me out. And I had been tempted to pick up the books before that, but I didn't really want to spoil the show. But since, of course, Netflix decided to once again pull my heart from my chest and stomp on it and then set it on fire and then tell me that I'm garbage, I decided that I'd pick it up and read the books. And of course, that was in the form of me listening to the audiobooks so I could consume them as fast as possible. Lockwood and Co. follows Lucy Carlisle, a teenage girl who is a listener. Like much of the world, the ghost problem has become rampant. Lucy's talent, being able to hear the ghost activity more keenly than others, made her an agent at a young age. After a horrible encounter with a changer and her fellow agents, Lucy heads to London for a fresh start. She ends up getting a job for a small company, Lockwood and Co., and she becomes the third team member alongside the founder, Anthony Lockwood, and fellow agent George Cubbins. As Lucy works on more and more cases, she begins to find out that not only is her talent more advanced than she once believed, but things aren't quite what they seemed in London. The series has 5 books, starting with The Screaming Staircase. If you are familiar with the show, this is about the first few episodes. The end of the show leaves off just about where the second book leaves off. The next episode will go more into depth about the TV show, and I'll discuss how they differ as well. So when I said that I listened to these audiobooks as fast as possible, I literally meant as fast as possible. I get my audiobooks off of Libby from my local library, so sometimes I have to wait for books to become available. But each time one of these would come up off of my holds list, I'd stop reading or listening to whatever I was listening to, and I would jump right back into them. And I would listen to them as much as possible, typically finishing within a day or two. I'd listen while I worked and while I did chores and while I got ready in the morning and driving, and as much as possible, really. I just couldn't put them down, for sure. And yes, I was still studying at the time for most of these books that I was listening to, except for I think the last one. But they were just so good, and I couldn't stop. And even though I was studying about maybe 20 hours a week on top of working, I still found time to listen to them because I needed to know how they ended. I really loved how these books were told from Lucy's perspective. Not only does it give us, more insight into her character, but I think it's also written in her voice really well, and so we get a lot of her tendencies to pop up and her mannerisms, and it was really well done, and it made it a little bit funnier as well. And I really like Lucy as a character. Not only is she capable of protecting herself, but she's also frequently saving her teammates. She's also being saved as well. So there's a good mix, and I just really like all of them as characters. Like from Lucy to Lockwood and George to Kipps, Holly, and Barnes, and of course Flo. I like the mix of characters and how they all got along or how they didn't get along, depending on the relationship between the characters. But it was just, I think, a really good mix of people. Like, the villains were really good, the heroes were good. You know, I just liked everybody in every single story. They were really well written. I also liked the world that Stroud builds. Very interesting takes on ghosts and the afterlife. There were different types of ghosts, different ways to combat them. I liked that each of the team had different levels of talent and in different areas as well. Lucy may be able to listen better than any of them, but Lockwood's sight was far better, to the point of having to use sunglasses from the bright death glows. I liked that Cubbins wasn't quite great at either, but was able to research like nobody else. I also liked that the adults couldn't see or listen, so relied on the younger people. It made for very interesting dynamics in the real world. I liked that they ate chocolate and sweets to feel better when talking about ghosts or after an encounter. It very much reminded me of, the chocolate from Harry Potter and how they would eat it after a Dementor attack. And I feel like universal. You eat chocolate to make yourself feel better. you get good endorphins from it. I also think that there were lots of details about how this world actually worked, so it felt very real. From the ghosts to the seedy underbelly of the city to the main companies like Rotwell Fitz and Fairfax Iron. The addition of night cabs with their iron and lavender wards, the haunted buildings, the ghost lamps. It was just so wonderful to get lost in this world that Stroud created. I genuinely loved everything in this series. I can't stop gushing about it and telling people about it. There was perhaps only one thing that I could mention that perhaps I wasn't in love with, which of course I will get to, but everything else was really fantastic. I was not at all disappointed with the entire series. I just loved it from start to finish. And if you really loved the show and you're also bummed, I think they follow fairly well. Again, next episode I'll get more into it, but I think that you can skip right back into the world and pick up these books and not feel like it's too far off from the show. So you can finish it in a different way, maybe. So what was it that I didn't 100% love? Well, okay, this is going to be I want to say slight spoiler, but it could be more of a spoiler depending on how much you care. So just be warned. This is about the romance. So I love a good, slow burn romance. They're definitely my cup of tea. I loved Lucy and Lockwood sharing small moments, but never quite crossing that line. I loved it. Did I want them to get together early in the series? Yes, obviously. But I was also okay with it happening at the end. What I wasn't quite thrilled about, however, was that in the end it was still kind of only hinted at. I mean, yes, obviously they were going to get together because of what happens in those last moments, which I will not say, but it was still off page that it was happening or will be happening. We didn't get the satisfying conclusion of hearing them say the words or anything. And yes, romance was obviously not the main focus of the story, which, again, I am fine with. I like a hint of romance within my stories, not a little story with my romance. And I'm not saying I hated it or even didn't like what he did. I just crave more. I want more of this story. I want more of, I think they call it Locklisle. Please, where is there more? I need it. It makes me really bummed that the show is canceled because now we'll never get more. And I need it. I need to read about them or watch them or exist in the room with them. Okay, that sounded creepy, but you know what I mean? I want to fall into a story of them. Like I said, I'm okay with how he ended it. I think it makes sense. It wasn't a heavy romance novel, so it makes sense that at the end we still only get that little bit of a hint, and that's okay, but there's a void in my heart, and it needs to be filled, and I've tried. Oh boy, I've tried fan fiction. I really did, but no one gets his writing right, and no one gets the feelings right either. The feeling between Lockwood and Carlisle, the feelings of the book, the atmosphere, none of it is quite right, It's and then the stories are either way too much or too little or too nothing, and I'm just bummed I didn't get that closure, One day I'll find a good fan fiction. Or if you have one, please send it my way. Speaking of the writing, I didn't mention it in my what I like section, even though I absolutely adored his writing. But I did want to mention that I could see how others may not enjoy it. It is a bit heavy on descriptions, on metaphors and similes, but to me it just added to the drama of the atmosphere, to the ambiance of this different London, made it very dark and heavy, and his descriptions definitely have a weight to them, making the words that much more palatable, which I really, really liked. But I could see people who don't like such a heavy descriptive text not really be a fan of this style. But to me, I think it made the world more real, and it made it a darker real, if that makes sense. Obviously, I recommend these books. They are, I think, between like middle grade and young adult, maybe more middle grade, like 8 to 12 kind of an age group. They have some swearing, but not a lot, and not, super bad. Of course, they can be creepy or scary depending on the audience reading them, but I thought they were amazingly well done. If you're looking for a book that's maybe not super teen heavy, I think the characters in the book themselves are kind of in that preteen, teenager stage, since again, the younger you are, the better you can kind of see and listen. And I think this is a really good book for younger readers to pick up. And next episode, I will be talking about the show, and I'll be focusing more on how they kind of differ from the books, but I will still be kind of doing a little bit of what I liked and what I didn't like. But spoiler alert, I did really love the show too, so there won't be much I didn't like. And there you have it. Those are my thoughts on the Lockwood and Co. series. Thank you so much for joining me. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr at Mixed Media Reviews Podcast. Please leave me a comment to let me know if you agreed or disagreed with anything I mentioned here, or if you have any suggestions. You can also find me anywhere you find your podcasts, probably. Please join me next time, where I will be discussing the TV show Lockwood and Co. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye!